Okay, so we had Horse and His Boy. So we did, let's see, chapters 4 through 6 and 7 through 9. So let's talk about that. I'm going to use my giant Chronicles of Narnia. This one was made for me by Mr. Harkin. This is all 7 of the Chronicles of Narnia. In one handy dandy book. So, and they're all in chronological order, which is nice. Okay. So, chapter 4, Shasta falls in with Narnians. Let's talk about that. Okay, so they go into Tashbaan. Congratulations to those of you who got the city correct. I had a few people get in contact with me. I know, let's see. I know Sophia did. I feel like Patrick did. I think Matthew did. I added your bonuses, don't worry. But the place is Mont Saint-Michel in France. So very good job on that for those of you who found it. Look. There it is. Well, that's Tashbaan, not the actual time. Never mind. Okay, so they all go into Tashbaan, and I find it very funny that, remember how with Magician's Nephew we were looking for everyone's different sins that they kind of fall into? The same thing happens with these people. With Shasta, Erebus, Bree, and Hwin. Each of them kind of has their general flaw that they fall into, and each of them also has the virtue that they fall into. So we'll see that. With Bree and Erebus, their flaw is kind of very much pride. And we see it coming out with Erebus a little bit when they're going in. I don't have the page numbers because this is a giant version. So my pages would be completely off. So anyways, let's see. So it's when they're going in and they're all walking in and, is anything wrong? Whispered Shasta to Erebus, who had an odd look on her face. It was all very well for you, whispered Erebus rather savagely. What would you care about being in Tashbaan? But I ought to be riding in on a litter with soldiers before me and slaves behind and perhaps going to a feast in the Tisrock's palace, may he live forever. Not sneaking in like this. It's different for you. Shasta thought this all very silly. Understandably so, because that's kind of ridiculous. But anyways, Erebus has a little bit of a streak of pride in her, as does Bree, who is very upset about his tail being cut, as we recall. So anyways, they're going in. Shasta was pretending to lead the way, but it was really Bree who knew the way and kept guiding him by little nudges with his nose. So they start going, and they keep having to make way for people who are important going down the street where everyone has to cram against the wall so that they have an easy passage through. And so anyways, they keep having this happen. And then all of a sudden they have everyone shouting, make way. And there was no litter. Everyone was on foot. There was about half a dozen men, and Shasta had never seen anyone like them before. For one thing, they were all fair-skinned as himself, and most of them had fair hair. They were not dressed like men of Calormen. Most of them had legs bare to the knee, and their tunics were fine, bright, hardy colors, woodland green or bright yellow or fresh blue. Instead of turbans, they wore steel or silver caps, some of them set with jewels, and one with little wings on each side of it. A few were bareheaded. The swords at their sides were long and straight, not curved like Calormen's scimitars. And instead of being grave and mysterious like most Calormenes, they walked with a swing and let their arms and shoulders go free and chatted and laughed. One was whistling. You could see that they were ready to be friends with anyone who was friendly and didn't give a fig for anyone who wasn't. Shasta thought he had never seen anything so lovely in his life. But he doesn't get time to enjoy it because suddenly they kidnap him, basically. And take him away, saying that he ran away and they all know him, and this is very, very odd. So anyways, they take him and they start calling him Corin. And he goes back to their palace that they're in, and we meet some familiar people, such as Queen Susan. We find Queen Susan, woohoo, and King Edmund are both there. Lucy and Peter are not. Susan and Edmund are the ones who are in there. He also sees a fawn. He was in fact a fawn, which is a creature Shasta had never seen a picture of or even heard of. And if you've read a book called The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, you may like to know that this was the very same fawn, Tumnus by name, whom Queen Susan's sister Lucy had met on her first day when she found her way into Narnia. But he was a good deal older now. By this time, Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy had been kings and queens of Narnia for several years. So we meet Tumnus again, and he's so sweet and wonderful, and everyone goes out, and we find out that the son of the Tisrock was wanting to marry Susan, and she says, Rabadash, Prince Rabadash, So they're talking, and he's speaking to Susan. He says, "What think you? We've been in the city full 3 weeks. Have you settled in your mind whether you will marry this lover of yours, Prince Rabadash, or no?" The lady shook her head. "No, brother," she said. "Not for all the jewels in Tashban." Hello, thought Shasta. Although they're king and queen, they're brother and sister, and they're not married to one another. Because, normally they'd be married, so... Yeah, they're siblings. That was my folly, said Queen Susan, of which I cry you mercy. Yet when he was with us in Narnia, truly this prince bore himself in another fashion than he does now in Tashban. For I take you all to witness what marvellous feats he did in the great tournament, and salute with our brother the High King made for him, and how meekly and courteously he consorted with us for the space of 7 days. But here in his own city, he has shown another face. So this is actually very true with people as well. If you ever meet someone and they seem really, really nice when they're over at someone else's house or when they're, at a fancy event or something, but then you see them in their own familiar habitat and they suddenly become very pompous or very prideful or very, oh, they'll take care of that, don't worry about it. And you're, shouldn't we clean up the dishes? No, everyone else does that, not me. You're just, oh, that's a bit of a warning sign. So anyways, they decide they must try to sneak out. So they say, okay, we should leave Tashban, right away. And there's the rub, sister, said Edmund. For now I must open to you all that's been growing in my mind these last 2 days and more. Paradin, of your courtesy, look to the door and see that there's no one spying on us. Well, so, for now, we must be secret. Everyone began to look very serious, and Queen Susan jumped up and ran to her brother. "Oh, Edmund," she cried. "What is it? There's something truly dreadful in your face." So what they find out is they are in danger, and that's because Edmund says, "I do not think we shall find it as easy to leave Tashban. While the prince had hoped that you would take him, we were honored guests, but, by the lion's mane, I think that as soon as he has your flat denial, we shall be no better than prisoners." One of the dwarfs gave a low whistle. "I warned your majesties, I warned you," said Swallowpad the raven. "Easily in, but not easily out, as the lobster said in the lobster pot." "I have been with the prince this morning," continued Edmund. "He is little used, more's the pity, to having his will crossed. So basically he's not used to people saying no to him. He is spoiled. Very much so. He has chafed at your long delays and doubtful answers, and this morning he pressed very hard to know your mind. I put it aside, meaning at the same time to diminish his hopes, with some light common jests about women's fancies, and hinted that his suit was likely to be cold. He grew angry and dangerous. There was a sort of threatening, though still veiled under a show of courtesy, in every word he spoke." So then they ask Tumnus, and Tumnus said, "Yeah, the Grand Vizier said something similar. He said, how do you like Tashban?" And I said, "I prefer Narnia," and he gave a smile saying, "Well, there's nothing to hinder you from going back there again, always provided you leave us in exchange for a bride for our prince." So basically they're saying, are you saying he's going to force her to marry him and basically have her as a prisoner? And they go, yeah, we're pretty much afraid of that. So they decide that they are going to sail away in their ship. They're going to say that they're holding a feast on the ship, which will totally make an excuse for them bringing provisions and supplies aboard. People won't be going, "Why are they taking provisions on the ship? Are they trying to leave?" They'll go, "Oh no, they're holding a party. Of course they would take stuff on board for food." So that's very sneaky of them. Their ship is called the Splendor Hyline. Hyline, by the way, means something clear or translucent, essentially. So Splendor, basically it's saying it's a really fast ship. Splendorous see-throughness. So, anyways, Shasta, however, has overheard all of this, and he's going, "Well, I would never betray them, but I just heard every single one of their plans. This is not good. This is really not good." So he falls asleep after having a nice meal, and he's starting to think, well, it might be nice to just leave with the Narnians. This seems so much easier than crossing a desert. I can just sail there. This is a lot easier. And then he was a little worried about Erebus and Bree waiting for him at the tombs, and he said to himself, "Well, how can I help it?" Anyways, Erebus thinks she's too good to go on without me, and, I'm getting a call. Okay, we're gonna ignore that. Okay, well, how can I help it? And anyway, Erebus thinks she's too good to go about with me anyways, so she can jolly well go alone. At the same time, he couldn't help feeling that it would be much nicer to go to Narnia by sea than toiling across the desert. So he then goes to sleep. He wakes up when there's a crash, and ta-da! The real Corin is there. Corin shows up and says, "Well, this is really funny that though we look the same." And he asks, "Okay, what happened to you? Because you're bleeding from the mouth and you are looking very beat up. Your clothing's all torn. What's going on? And he says, well, someone made an awful joke about Queen Susan, so I knocked him down. Basically, someone made a joke about Susan, so I punched him in the face. And then his brother came over, and I punched his brother in the face, and then some men started chasing me. Which, you have to love his defense of Susan's honor, that he would, you can't talk about her that way, so, pow. I don't recommend it, but it is very sweet of him. So then Shasta leaves, Corin stays, they switch places, he'll have to explain it all. Shasta says, I'm sorry I heard all the plans, I'm not going to tell anybody, I don't want them to think poorly of me, because they seem so nice. So then, anyways, Shasta goes to the tombs. Notice, there are 12 tombs. Ooh! As he's at the tombs, he gets started freaked out and starts thinking about ghosts, and then he gets all scared because something touches him, and it's just a cat, it's a nice old cat. He's being all sweet to him, keeping him company. And then he hears what sounds like... sorry, a lot of texts and calls. He starts hearing hyenas and things that are coming for him. The cat's gone, which makes him feel sad. And then the cat comes back, and all of them go away. So that's nice. And then at one point he says, I'll never do anything nasty to a cat again as long as I live. I did once, you know. I threw stones at a half-starved Mainshield stray. Hey, stop that! For the cat had turned round and given him a scratch. None of that, said Shasta. It isn't as if you could understand what I'm saying. And then he dozed off. So he wakes up, the cat's gone. He goes raiding, stealing a little bit of food, getting a few oranges, a melon, a fig or two, and a pomegranate. Then he went back to the riverbank, had a drink, and took a bath. So that's nice. And he's starting to think that Erebus has stood him up and, like, they already left or something. So he's making plans to, like, collect all these melons and try to make it for himself across the desert. And so we need to find out what happened to Erebus. And in chapter 7 through 9, we do. So Erebus is in Tashbaan, and she gets recognized by Lazarine, who was a friend of hers, and who is kind of very much like a modern teenage girl, just, you know, only caring about clothing and everything, etc., etc., etc. So she says, okay, well, I'll tell you what, I can sneak you through the Tisrock's palace, we can row across in a little boat, you can go over to the tombs or whatever, I don't understand why you'd want to leave, look at all the parties we have, I have such wonderful clothing, and just going on and on about how great her life is, blah, 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 and calls her darling, it's not nice, and to think, said Lazarine, almost crying, that if only you had the sense, you could be the wife of the Grand Vizier. Erebus went away to have a private word with the horses, and just leaves her alone at that point. Okay, so, they set out to go into the palace, and they hear someone coming, and so they hide behind a sofa in a room, and people come into the room, and one of them is the Tisrock, one of them is the Grand Vizier, Ahoshta Tarkin, who she was supposed to marry, and there's a third person who is, of course, Rabadash, the prince. So they're in the house of the Tisrock. They're going through, and Rabadash has a plan that he wants to go and invade Narnia. And by invading Narnia, first he wants to take out King Lune and his kingdom, and then he wants to attack Narnia from there. And the Tisrock is very selfish and is going, oh yes, you're my son and everything, but I don't want to be tied to this, so how do I not get in trouble and get revenge? Have people trying to take revenge on me? And he says, well, tell you what, I'll do it, and we can say it's all without your knowledge, and then if I get captured, then you can say, well, he just went off and did this by himself. I have no idea that this was going to happen. That's it. And then if he succeeds, then the Tisrock gets more land. So that's great for him. And you can tell by how the Tisrock speaks, that he does not care if Rabadash lives or dies. Which, what a parent. Not really. That's unfortunate. Okay, and we also find out that Ahoshta is just really, really, really pathetic. He's sitting on the floor with his face in the dust, trying to butter up everybody. Rapidash calls him an old babbler at one point. After being called that, he says, "Oh, the praise of my masters is light in my eyes." After he just insulted you to your face. So they, he also keeps kicking him. Poor Ahoshta keeps getting kicked by Rapidash. And they say, is there any chance that anyone could have heard this? And they say, oh no, it's not possible that anyone would hear. And Tizrak says, it is well. If any man knew, I would see to it that he died before an hour had passed. And the two girls are sitting there listening to this going, we're gonna die. So there we go. So then they leave. Lazarine is just, oh, it's dreadful. It's perfectly dreadful. Oh, darling, I'm so frightened. I'm shaking all over. And just totally useless. Erebus, you must notice at this point, is quite brave. Because despite all of this happening, she's going, okay, I don't care. We need to get out. Like now. So you need to stop crying. Get up off the floor. Take me to the boats. And then you can go home. But we need to move. We can't just stay here because they will come back and find us. So she gets her to move. They go. The horses get dropped off. And so then they start across the desert after all of this goes. So they're going across the desert, blah, 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 going on and on and on. Just the worst. And then they have heard that there is a secret passage between these mountains that's a valley that has a river in it. And that's the easiest way to actually get there, but very few people know about it. And the Raven had mentioned this, and Shasta has heard about it. It's about Mount Pike. Is it Mount Pike? Hold on. Double checking my map. Stormness Head and Mount Pyre. Mount Pyre. There we go. So it's halfway between those. So they make for it. They enter the gully, and look, there's water. So they all fall asleep, and then they realize, oh no, they're coming. Dun dun dun. And that's. Oh wait, sorry. No, they don't know that. Oh, I spoiled. Shh, mute me. I'm sorry. Okay, no, they're going in the valley, and it was a pleasant place that made you want to ride slowly. Okay, and that's where we leave off. I will finish there and be done now. I hope you're enjoying this currently. I love this story so much, and everything is about to get intense. We're also about to meet some of my favorite characters that are just fantastic. So, anyways, that is coming up this week, and it will be, standard stuff and then spring break. So, relax and have a nice week. Anyways, thank you. I miss you all. I hope you have a wonderful Holy Week and spring break.